Hi everyone. Tonight we're going to talk about a creature that wasn't supposed to exist, and yet somehow. It's already here, or at least, it will be. You're sipping your morning coffee. The sun is out, the air is calm, it's just another regular day on Earth. Then, without warning, the sky cracks open, a portal swirls above a soccer field. And out of it come humans, wounded, panicked, armed. But they're not from another country. They're from another time. They look at us, with eyes hollow from war, and they say, "We are losing." I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The war they're talking about is not between nations. It's not between humans at all. It's between us and something we never saw coming. A species known only by its codename, white spike. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And if you've ever thought about what it'd be like to fight in a war you were never trained for, you're in the right place. Drop a comment below with your location and local time. I want to know where my fellow survivors are. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise. And let's get started tonight. The first time I saw the footage of the white spikes, grainy, fast-forwarded, shaky cam, I thought it was fake. Something viral, maybe an ARG. But the screams, the way the camera shook when the first white spike tore through a platoon of soldiers, no amount of Hollywood editing could replicate that. They called it the Tomorrow War. But really, it's today's nightmare. And the craziest part, the monsters weren't attacking from space. They were already here, frozen beneath our feet, long before our species ever built its first city. It all started with a message, a time jump from 2051. Humanity was on the brink of extinction, and the remaining survivors were desperate. So desperate, in fact, they invented a one-way bridge to the past and pleaded with their ancestors, us, for help. Let that sink in. The future needed us. The same way we count on the past for fossils, blueprints, DNA, and the enemy, it was something that doesn't negotiate. Something that doesn't fear. Something that reproduces faster than we can reload. Now here's where the old wisdom kicks in. The greatest threat is the one you never see coming. That's exactly what happened. The white spikes didn't show up in a flaming meteor. They didn't storm our cities in spaceships. They just appeared, like ghosts out of Siberian snow. The white spike invasion started in 2048. Cities fell within days. Within 3 years, 70% of humanity was gone. We threw everything at him, drones, tanks, chemical weapons, but they kept coming. Stronger, smarter. And then, someone found the truth. A recon team in the future discovered something buried deep in the permafrost of Russia. Under layers of ancient ice, they stumbled upon a massive alien cargo ship. Not a battleship, not a cruiser, a transport, which means the white spikes weren't passengers. They were cargo. And this is where the academic debate gets juicy. Some scientists argue the white spikes are a natural species, maybe evolved from a different biosphere. Others believe they were engineered, grown in vats, shipped across galaxies to wipe planets clean. Personally, I think they were both. According to the scans of the wreckage, the ship had another alien species on board. Humanoid, fossilized, dead. They were the ones who built the ship, the ones who bred the white spikes. But something went wrong. The ship crash landed on Earth thousands of years ago, and the white spikes were sealed inside, hibernating in the cold, until climate change cracked open the tomb. That's the part that gets me. It wasn't war or invasion that released them. It was us, our pollution, our heat. We melted the locks of our own extinction. It's like opening a cursed sarcophagus because you wanted better Wi-Fi. And suddenly, I understood why the survivors looked the way they did. Not angry, not hopeless, just tired. Tired of fighting something that doesn't stop. Tired of telling new recruits, aim for the throat, not the back. Tired of watching the sky, waiting for those 2 signature spikes to rise above the horizon. That's what gives them their name, white spikes. 2 bone-like tendrils sprouting from their back, whipping like scorpion tails, and more lethal than any weapon we've ever made. Some even say the sound they make, the shriek right before they charge, is what drives people mad before the claws even reach them. There's an old soldier's saying, the moment you hear the battle cry, it's already too late. The white spikes never needed diplomacy, never sent warnings, never cared about species or innocence or potential. They're not invaders, they're tools. And now, the future begs us for help to fight an enemy we accidentally awakened. one that was designed to end us before we even began. They called it a discovery. I call it a buried nightmare. After the first wave of attacks, people started asking the same question. Where did these things even come from? And when the military couldn't answer, the conspiracy theorists filled in the blanks. Aliens, genetic mutations, interdimensional accidents, the usual suspects. But the truth was worse than all of those. It came out during the Siberian expedition, an operation buried in classified files and thermal satellite scans. A team of future-sent soldiers, led by Dan Forrester, tracked seismic anomalies to a glacial valley near the Koryak Mountains. What they found wasn't just strange, it was impossible. An alien spacecraft the size of a city block, half fused into the ice. Not parked, crashed, no landing gear, no signals, just frozen silence and ancient design. Like a cathedral built for something that never prayed. The team drilled through the fuselage, expecting nothing, maybe some tech scraps. What they got were eggs. Hundreds of them, or at least, that's what they looked like. Pale, leathery, coated in frost, and nestled in pods like flesh inside bone. The ship wasn't a home or a lab, it was a delivery truck. And the white spikes, they were the payload. Which raises the terrifying question. If the monsters were the weapons, who were the customers? Here's the strange part. Among the wreckage were the remains of a humanoid species. Not like us, not even close. Long-limbed, multi-eyed, chitinous armor fused into their skeletons. Their corpses were mutilated, ripped apart from the inside out. My guess, they lost control of their own cargo. See, the white spikes weren't supposed to wake up on Earth. They were likely programmed or bioengineered to remain dormant until activated by some signal. But Earth didn't get the signal. Earth got warmer, and as the permafrost thinned, the ice cracked open like an old wound, and outpoured death. There's a phrase in paleontology: the past doesn't stay buried. It waits. And wait, they did. The discovery was never supposed to go public. But when the white spikes began to overrun Eurasia, someone leaked the truth. The monsters were not invaders. They were left behind, a cosmic accident, or worse, a forgotten bomb ticking under our feet for 1,000 years. And just like that, humanity had a deadline. Within months, military outposts were established near the crash site. Teams were sent to extract the frozen bodies for analysis. Scientists worked around the clock to study the creatures while still encased in ice. Some of them even began to whisper, maybe we can learn from them. Maybe we can control them. You know how that ends, right? The first thawed specimen woke up before the tranquilizers kicked in. It killed 7 researchers in 17 seconds. Bit through steel like it was cracker crust. Then melted into the vents. Vanished for 2 hours. And reappeared with 3 times the speed and aggression. Lesson learned: never assume a frozen alien weapon is dead. Quirky fact of the day: some insects can stay dormant in ice for decades. The Arctic woolly bear moth freezes itself solid and thaws again each spring. Evolution wrote the manual long before sci-fi caught up. Now imagine that, but with teeth. And a brain designed for tracking prey across entire cities. Academic debates flared. Are the white spikes natural predators? Or synthetic monsters? Did they evolve from some lost ecosystem? Or were they grown in vats like organic drones? The conclusion wasn't hopeful. Their genetics were too uniform. Their reproductive systems too streamlined. There was no diversity, no adaptation, just replication, efficiency, mass production. They weren't animals. They were inventory. This is where it gets speculative. Some theorists believe the alien species aboard the ship were part of a larger galactic empire, a cold, calculated force that drops white spikes onto a planet to sterilize it. No survivors, no resistance, just silence. And when the planet is cleared, they come in and colonize. Think of the white spikes as an interstellar version of Roundup. Just, much bloodier. Here's the kicker. That ship crash landed on Earth thousands of years ago. Some radiocarbon dating suggests it hit long before modern humans even developed writing. Which means these monsters were lying in wait while we were still figuring out how to make fire. And we would have never known, if not for us. Our industries, our emissions, our unchecked consumption. In a poetic twist, it wasn't a comet or an invasion that doomed us, it was global warming. We unlocked our own extinction. And so, the soldiers from the future returned, not to change the past, but to beg the past to save itself. They knew what was coming, and they knew they couldn't win alone. Which brings us to this moment. Right now, where every glacier might be a vault, every mountain a crypt, and every quiet snowfall a warning. The monsters were always here. We just didn't look deep enough. There's a specific kind of terror that doesn't come from shadows or screams. It comes from design. From knowing that something was built, not born, to kill you as efficiently as possible. That's what the white spikes are. They weren't just alive, they were engineered for carnage. I remember the first time I saw a full body rendering. The military called it a specimen mobility assessment. I called it the blueprint for our extinction. 4 primary limbs, each capable of independent locomotion. Their structure allows them to run on all 4s for speed, then rise onto 2 legs for combat posture, giving them range and dominance. Every joint is double hinged. That means they don't move like us, they flow. Like a shark that learned how to sprint. Their skin isn't just armor, it's reactive tissue. Think of it as organic Kevlar. Thicker around the back and shoulders, flexible near the joints, and somehow able to absorb blunt impact while shedding ballistic force. We threw everything at him, bullets, mines, even napalm, and they kept charging. Old war saying, if your weapon doesn't work, you're using it wrong, or you're fighting the wrong war. And oh, we were absolutely fighting the wrong war. Every part of the white spike is a weapon. From their bone density to their optical placement, eyes slightly forward facing but shielded by cartilage ridges, allowing them to track movement even in smoke. Their ears, highly sensitive, capable of picking up ultra-low frequencies like sonar. You can't sneak up on them, you can't ambush them, but they can do both to you. Then there are the tendrils. Long, whip-like appendages that sprout from their back and act as semi-independent limbs. They can grab, slice, impale, and even throw. Think of them as alien tentacles crossed with scorpion tails. Only faster and more flexible. And yes, they use them with precision. One soldier described them as death on autopilot. And don't even get me started on the spike launchers. At first, no one believed the footage. A creature firing hardened bone projectiles like arrows. Sounded like sci-fi nonsense. But it's real. Those spikes, grown along the spinal ridge and launched using hydraulic muscle contractions. No gunpowder needed. Just raw pressure. They're accurate up to 80 meters and can punch through reinforced steel. Imagine a cheetah with a built-in crossbow. Now imagine 200 of them. That's what the battlefield looked like. Let me pause here with something light. You know how some jellyfish don't have brains but still hunt with deadly accuracy? Yeah, life doesn't always need intelligence to be lethal. But the white spikes, they have both. They're not dumb brutes. They learn. They adjust. If they lose a fight, the next wave fights differently. Smarter. Coordinated. They're like an antivirus that rewrites its own code mid-attack. You throw a trap at them once. They avoid it next time. I saw them flank tanks. Ambush helicopters. Use terrain to mask their movement. Not random. Not instinct. Tactics. And that's what makes them worse than other movie monsters. Zombies stumble. Aliens stalk. But white spikes, they plan. Their hunger doesn't seem to be driven by metabolism. They don't eat to survive, they eat to eliminate. When food is scarce, they cache bodies. They hang corpses in elevated nests. Not out of malice, but as reserves. They're thinking about tomorrow while they kill you today. You've probably noticed I haven't called them animals once. That's not an accident. They don't behave like wolves, or ants, or even apex predators. They behave like a system. An algorithm in flesh. That brings us to reproduction, and I promise it's not any more comforting. They reproduce through a controlled breeding hierarchy. The queen lays the eggs, and she is guarded constantly. Males serve almost entirely as hunters and food suppliers. She doesn't fight until you find her. And then, well, let's just say, you'll wish you hadn't. It's said the queen can take multiple direct RPG hits before going down. She emits pheromones that command every nearby spike into a frenzy. When she's threatened, they lose control. They go from coordinated soldiers to berserkers. And that, ironically, becomes their weakness. More on that later. Here's a fun academic tidbit. In some species of wasps, the queen emits chemical signals that keep the colony organized. Remove her, and the hive collapses into chaos. Nature figured this out. So did whoever created the spikes. The queen is the linchpin. And if you're thinking, great, let's just kill her first, well, good luck finding her. She stays underground, deep beneath nests surrounded by thick tunnels and natural armor. The few who've seen her and lived describe her as twice the size of a male. covered in spike chambers, and constantly guarded by hundreds of drones. She's not just stronger, she's meaner. As in, actively cruel. The way she mutilates victims is intentional. She's not just eliminating threats. She's sending messages. So yeah, if you were hoping for a silver bullet or some miracle serum, this isn't that kind of story. But remember, no matter how strong the beast, it was built by something smarter. And what's built can be broken, even if it fights like it can't. I used to think the scariest part about the white spikes was their biology. The claws, the spikes, the sheer, overwhelming violence. But I was wrong. What truly chilled me, the part that made my stomach knot and my hands sweat, was how they moved together. Not just as a swarm, as a unit. See, if you've ever watched wolves hunt or birds fly in synchronized patterns. You know nature loves systems. But the white spikes, they weren't just instinctual, they were tactical, organized, coordinated like a special forces team with a hive mind. The first time I saw footage of them breaching a city perimeter, it didn't look like chaos. It looked like a drill. The front line pushed, the rear flanked, and the middle vanished into buildings to create internal panic. Meanwhile, one climbed the tallest rooftop and used its vantage point to launch a volley of spikes into evacuation zones. You can't teach that to animals. That's learned behavior, or worse, programmed behavior. Old age wisdom here. The smartest predators don't run faster, they run together. And these things, they ran like a war machine. Researchers believe they use a complex system of sound-based signaling. High-pitched chirps, low-frequency rumbles, even those blood-curdling screeches, they all mean something. Some scientists likened it to whale song. But I'm fast-forward and war-cranked. It's how they communicate targets, routes, threats. But they don't just coordinate. They delegate. During the assault on Kyoto, yes, they reached Japan. Drones picked up something eerie. Individual spikes herding humans like cattle. Not slaughtering all of them. Not at first. Some were kept alive, corralled, used as bait to lure defenders into traps. That's not just cruel, that's calculated. And when you think they're done with you, that's when they send in more. The waves never stop, because white spikes reproduce fast. But even faster than that, they react. You block a street, they climb the buildings. You build walls, they dig under them. You use fire, they avoid heat signatures for days. We discovered early on that they remember. That's right, they retain combat data. Injure one, let it live, and it won't just avoid you next time, it'll kill differently. In fact, soldiers started calling them version 2s, mutated spikes that survived an attack, only to return meaner and more efficient. Their scars weren't weaknesses, they were upgrades. Here's a quirky fact to lighten the mood. There's a species of octopus that can open a jar from the inside. No thumbs, no training, just problem solving. That's the kind of intelligence we're up against, but now wrap that in 800 pounds of muscle and murder. The only thing worse than a monster you can't kill, is one that learns how not to be killed. Which brings us to their battlefield behaviors. Unlike traditional predators, white spikes don't waste energy. They don't chase blindly, they ambush, disorient, and isolate. First, they take out communications, then they break formations, then they drag you, one by one, into their killing zones. You ever see one of them pretend to be dead? It's rare, but it's real. Thermal scans picked up body heat spikes from spikes that appeared motionless, just lying in rubble. Playing dead, waiting for someone to walk by. And when someone does, it's over in seconds. Their memory also appears localized and distributed. What does that mean? It means that while there isn't evidence of a literal hive mind, information spreads fast. Like, unnaturally fast. You disable a trap in one zone, and within 30 minutes, that same trap style fails across the city. Some biologists proposed the idea of pheromone-based learning, like ants or bees. But exponentially more aggressive. The theory is still debated. But here's the thing. Whether it's scent, sound, or some form of electromagnetic signaling, they know what's happening, everywhere, all the time. And then, there's the Queen. We'll talk more about her later. But it's worth saying now, she is the brain behind the brutality. Her cries carry through miles of terrain. And when she screams, her army shifts in seconds. Retreat becomes charge. Stealth becomes swarm. She doesn't micromanage. She commands. With one screech, she can coordinate thousands like fingers on a single hand. Academic side note. Some crustaceans can regenerate entire limbs based on central nervous triggers. Imagine applying that to tactical coordination, where injury triggers not retreat, but reconfiguration. That's the level of tactical adaptability we're dealing with. The scariest footage I ever watched. A drone feed from Paris. An entire unit of soldiers lured a group of white spikes into a cathedral. Narrow hallways, thick stone walls, the perfect trap. They planted charges, waited, triggered the explosion, and then, silence, until they saw it, crawling out from under the rubble, not one, but two uncharted forms, smaller, faster, white spikes born inside the building, using the corpses of their own dead to cushion the blast. That's when we learned, they breed anywhere, on command, when necessary. They're more than monsters, they're adapting weapons. So next time someone tells you it's just a sci-fi bug hunt, you tell them this. Bugs don't use flanking maneuvers. Bugs don't hold hostages. Bugs don't plan sieges. But the white spikes do. And they're just getting started if the white spikes are the hammer. The queen is the hand that swings it. You don't see her in the opening strikes. You don't hear her name whispered in every debrief. But you feel her. Her presence lingers behind every maneuver, every wave, every moment when your squad suddenly knows they're being herded, not just hunted. Let me take you into the deep for a moment. I was embedded with a recon team in what used to be Alaska. The cold had slowed the spikes, but not stopped them. We found a tunnel, one we thought was abandoned. It wasn't. It was a nest. Inside, we found dozens of cocooned bodies, humans, deer, even other white spikes, but twisted, malformed, rejected. It looked like a biological test lab from a fever dream. And at the center, protected by thick walls of hardened resin and layers of dead drones. She slept. The queen. Now, old field wisdom says, if you find the general, the war's almost over. But that assumes the general can't rip your head off with one arm while coordinating an airstrike with the other. The white spike queen is something else entirely. She's massive, twice the size of the males. But not slower. Her muscle density is off the charts. And her limbs longer, ending in talons that could punch through concrete. Her back tendrils are split into 4, each one barbed and strong enough to impale a man clean through and drag him away like a puppet. But that's just her body. Her real power is control. She emits frequencies no one's been able to decipher. Some believe they're sonic commands. Others say pheromones. But whatever they are, they bend the entire swarm to her will. She's not barking orders. She's rewriting instincts. And here's the thing. Her influence extends miles. We clocked coordinated attacks happening in different cities, all timed with her known vocal spikes. Think about that. One entity, micromanaging chaos from across entire countries. There's an urban legend among soldiers that if you ever hear 2 pulses of her cry, back to back, it means a full swarm assault is inbound. Most of those stories end with static. Quirky moment for the day. Some crustaceans, like the mantis shrimp, can see up to 12 color channels. We humans only see 3. Imagine a brain that sees not only light, but emotion, motion, direction, pheromone, sound, all in the same blink. That's how the queen sees you. She doesn't need to outthink you. She outfeels you. You're a pattern in a map she's been drawing since before you were born. And her biggest weapon? Reproduction. You think the others breed fast? The queen lays hundreds of eggs at a time, clusters incubated deep underground. In geothermal nests that remain undetectable to surface scans. Her chambers are humid, hot, and heavily defended. Think ant colony meets war factory. Even if you killed 10,000 spikes in one battle, she'd replace them in days. We're not talking about a generational cycle here. We're talking weekly resets of an army. And when you kill a male, she doesn't rage. She calculates. She doesn't scream or panic. She simply reorganizes the swarm, reallocates threats, and updates her strategy in real time. Someone once said she thinks like a general, breeds like a virus, and fights like a cornered god. That's not far off. Now, here's something even more chilling. During one mission, Operation Black Sand, we managed to tag a queen with a biosensor drone. What we found was disturbing. She learns. She mapped every loss, every pattern, and adapted. She sent decoys into known ambush zones. She faked retreats. She even faked being dead, laying still for hours while smaller spikes carried her body, tricking drones into thinking she'd been killed. And the moment command relaxed, she came back, and she brought everyone. This isn't just brute strength. It's tactical genius. Academic nerd note here. In some hive insect species, when a queen dies, pheromone patterns dissolve, and the hive collapses into chaos. But the white-spiked queen seems to have fail-safes. Backups. In one case, we saw a mid-sized female begin releasing command frequencies moments after the queen went silent. She was less efficient, but she stepped in. That means there's no single head to cut off. There's a network. Killing one queen isn't enough. You have to sever the system. And here's the twist. They rarely go above ground. They remain hidden, burrowed deep in environments we can't easily reach, underground. Arctic biomes, mountain caverns. If you see one out in the open, it's already a trap. You've already lost. The queen only comes to the surface when she's ready to end the game. So what do? You don't chase her. You don't provoke her. You starve her, cut off supply chains, disrupt her signals, collapse her nests. And even then, you're only buying time. Because in the end, this isn't a war we're meant to win in one strike. It's a siege. And the queen, she's content to wait. After all, she waited for thousands of years already. Every time I think about how to stop the white spikes, the same phrase echoes in my head. Even nightmares leave a seam. Because as invincible as they seem, they're not perfect. No predator is. Even death machines have blind spots. So let's talk about what we've learned, their weaknesses. Not just in theory, but in the field. Real blood, real bullets, real losses. Let's start with the obvious one. They're tough, but not invulnerable. White spikes have that thick bio-armor along their backs, shoulders, and limbs. It's dense, flexible, and terrifyingly good at shrugging off standard-issue bullets. You can unload a whole clip and just make them angrier. But here's the catch. They're not armored everywhere. The underbelly, neck, and especially the eyes are vulnerable. So are the inner joints, the elbows, the backs of the knees, right under the jawline. These are soft tissue zones. And when hit right, they go down, hard. But good luck aiming for that in the middle of a swarm. Old sniper proverb, it's not the shot, it's the calm before it. Because to get those clean kills, you need more than aim. You need timing. And timing is where we found their second weakness. Spike reload time. They can launch those bone shards at devastating speeds, but not infinitely. Each white spike has a limited ammo reserve, usually 5 to 8 spikes per engagement. After that, they need time to regrow them. How long? About 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Depending on the individual, that's your window. That's when they're vulnerable. They fight more aggressively during this downtime, close quarters brutality, but you can flank. Reposition, strike, it's like their breath between roars. Third weakness, their predictability in pain. When injured, spikes reflexively turn their armored backs toward the source of pain. It's smart, protects vital organs, but it also telegraphs movement. Train your squad to expect the spin. And you can bait it, draw fire, make them expose the side or belly. It's the only time they stop thinking tactically and start thinking viscerally. And then there's the queen. Yes, she's a monster, but she's also a linchpin. Remove her, and the swarm becomes fractured. Not mindless, but disorganized. Communications drop, aggression spikes, formation falls apart. The problem? She's surrounded, always. So how do you get her? You don't aim to kill. You aim to scare, shock, confuse, force her to scream. When she emits her rallying cry, you use that signal to triangulate, then hit her with sonic interference, blind her coordination, and isolate her. That's when you strike. A weird academic fact. Some amphibians experience temporary paralysis in cold shock. They don't die, they just stop functioning. This led to a huge realization about the white spikes. They hate the cold, not dislike, hate. See, they were frozen for centuries, and their biology adapted to arid, high oxygen environments. Cold slows their movement, dulls their reactions, and in some cases, completely immobilize them. The best counteroffensives, Arctic outposts, polar ambushes, ice-based traps. I remember this one mission. Codename, Snowblind. We funneled an entire horde into a crevasse with freezing mist sprayed across the ice. They slowed down, their spikes lost velocity, their coordination fell apart. By the end of it, only one soldier was injured, and that was from slipping on the damn ice. We learned then, cold is their kryptonite. And then we found the toxin. Yeah, you've heard the whispers. The miracle bioweapon developed in the future timeline. It wasn't just poison, it was cellular sabotage. It attacked the white spike's internal regulation system, causing organ failure within minutes. The problem? It worked on the males, not the females. When we tried it on the queen, she survived. Not only that, she adapted. Her body began producing counter compounds. Her spawn were born resistant. In other words, we made her stronger. That's when we realized, we need more than a cure. We need containment. Biological war isn't just about killing. It's about starving reproduction, cutting supply lines, freezing eggs, targeting birthing nests. That's where the real war is fought, not on the battlefield. But before the spikes are even born, you know how some viruses burn themselves out if they run out of hosts? Same concept. If we can limit the conditions for spikes to breed, heat, humidity, isolation, we cut them off at the source. Some say that's not enough, that we need a final solution. But I say this, you don't have to kill the ocean. You just have to drain the tide. The tide is the queen, the nests, the environmental conditions that give them power. So what are the real tools that matter? Armor-piercing incendiary rounds, sonic interference equipment, cryo grenades, and tactical intel on spawn zones. Forget the hero guns and sci-fi swords. This is a war of precision, and every inch of biological data we gather buys us one more day. One more breath. So yes, white spikes are nightmares. But even nightmares blink, and when they do, we strike. There's a saying passed around in military bunkers during the Tomorrow War. The real enemy isn't the monster, it's the clock. Because every hour that passed, every minute we hesitated, they multiplied. And for the first time in human history, we weren't just racing to win, we were racing to survive our own extinction. The white spikes were never going to negotiate. That was clear from day one. But what wasn't clear, what no one fully anticipated, was how fast we'd lose ground. Cities fell in weeks, continents were evacuated, and when the future war came back to the present, it didn't come with victory, it came with desperation. Let me tell you about what I saw in the lab. A team of biochemists, geneticists, and military scientists working around the clock in an underground bunker. No windows, no sunlight, just UV lamps, data feeds, and vials of alien blood. They were building a weapon, not of destruction, but of collapse, a toxin that could unravel the white spike's biology at its most fundamental level. And they were close. They isolated a protein sequence in the male spikes, something stable, consistent across every captured specimen. They built a toxin to target it, tested, retested, and then, finally, they deployed it. Success. The males dropped like puppets with their strings cut. It worked, flawlessly, until they tried it on a female. She didn't just survive, she changed. Old field wisdom, evolution doesn't wait. It races. The queen's body began producing antitoxins. Her offspring hatched with partial immunity. The very act of fighting her made her faster, smarter, stronger, and that's when the strategy shifted. We didn't need a bullet, we needed a plan. So we looked at their cycles, their biology, we mapped their breeding zones, their food supply routes, the climate data that supported hatching conditions. It was ecosystem warfare, and that's when the idea emerged. Don't just kill them, starve them. We deployed sonic disruptors to interfere with breeding signals, cryogenic charges to freeze nests before hatching, drones to scatter pheromone disruptors, confusing the males into retreating. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Each day we slowed their reproduction was a day gained. Here's a quirky off-topic fact. There's a species of African termite that builds towers so tall they have internal ventilation systems. No tools, no blueprints, just instinct and collaboration. Now imagine a white spike nest built on the same principle, but weaponized. That's what we were up against. The biggest challenge wasn't just destroying nests, it was finding them. The queen moved them constantly, used earth tremors to mask their locations, planted decoys, even sacrificed lesser females as bait. This was no longer a war of guns. It was chess, with extinction as the checkmate. And yet, we pressed on. We found that targeting the breeding cycle was more effective than mass firepower. Because if a queen couldn't lay viable eggs, the drones became frantic. They hunted less, protected more. They started breaking down. We realized their entire system, fighting, feeding, breeding, depended on perfect synchronization. Disrupt that rhythm, and you turned killers into wanderers. Still, the pressure never let up. Every day was a countdown. We'd see schools turned into triage camps. Cities become craters. The map of Earth shrinking by the hour. And somewhere, beneath all that loss, we asked the question no one wanted to say aloud. What if we're too late? It haunted us, because deep down, we knew, this wasn't just about survival. It was about redemption. We melted the ice that freed them. We ignored the signals, the patterns, the early deaths. We thought we were safe. And we weren't. So now, we weren't just fighting a species. We were fighting our own failure. And every time we delayed, they advanced. The worst part, they weren't angry. They weren't vengeful. They were just doing what they were designed to do. Which means, someone designed them. And maybe, just maybe, the real enemy hasn't even arrived yet. But we'll get to that. Right now, all you need to remember is this. The moment you stop running the clock runs over you. And the white spikes, they never stop ticking. I used to believe that monsters were fiction, metaphors for our fears. But the white spikes aren't metaphors. They're warnings, written in flesh, buried in ice, ignored for too long. And now, they are rewriting what it means to be prey. Let me tell you about the final push. Operation Dropve. You won't find that name in the history books. They changed the report afterward. Sanitized it. But I was there. A joint force, multinational. Time-bridged. Desperation-laced. The goal, one of the deepest, most heavily guarded breeding nests ever discovered. Beneath a dormant volcanic crater in Iceland. A place so remote it hadn't seen footprints in centuries. We dropped in silent, cold as the grave. The plan was elegant in theory. Breach the tunnels. Plant cryo bombs. Extract before the Queen responded. But remember what I told you? She always responds. The second we hit the nesting chamber, something changed. The drones didn't charge. They retreated, pulled back, sealed off exits behind us. And then, her cry. It was a sound I won't forget. It wasn't just loud, it was inside you. Like every cell in your body clenched at once. She didn't come at us like a beast. She moved like a queen. Calculated, coiled, composed. She didn't attack first. She watched. And when we made a single misstep, one grenade roll too early, she unleashed hell. Talons, tendrils, spikes, all angles of death. My unit scattered, and that's when I realized. She wasn't trying to kill us. She was trying to learn us. She countered every tactic we tried. Moved faster with each moment. Anticipated, predicted, corrected. Old soldiers saying, the first to adapt wins. Well, we didn't adapt fast enough. Only 3 of us made it out. And the Queen, she vanished beneath the ice tunnels, again. But the data we brought back, it changed everything. We confirmed what many feared. She was no longer just reproducing. She was evolving. New drone variants, different bone structure, spikes that curved mid-flight. Nest patterns designed to trap drones, not repel them. The war wasn't static, it was accelerating. And here's the final, most disturbing truth. We weren't the first. Records found in the alien ship's core, holographic imprints, biomechanical codes, hinted at other worlds, other exterminations, patterns of white spike deployment across planets marked with symbols and dates. We don't know who the creators were, or if they're still alive. But we know this. Earth was just a test site. We were never supposed to wake them up. We were never supposed to fight back. And now that we have, they're watching. So what's the final move? We don't know yet, but we do know their rhythm, their weakness, their arrogance. They didn't expect resistance. They didn't expect us to fight smarter, colder, longer, and that's where we strike. We use the cold, the toxin, the cracks in their perfection. We exploit the only thing they lack, human will, because monsters kill, but only people fight to the last breath. So here we are, not on the brink of defeat, but on the edge of redefinition. Because if we survive this, if we truly rise against this perfect storm of fang, flesh, and silence, then maybe we'll earn the right to keep this planet after all. And if not, then at least the white spikes will remember this. We didn't go quietly, we roared. The story of the white spikes is not just a tale of monstrous invasion, it's a reckoning. A grim reminder that humanity's greatest enemies are often those we unleash upon ourselves. Through arrogance, ignorance, or apathy. Over 8 chapters, we've journeyed from the origins of these bioengineered nightmares, frozen beneath the Siberian ice, forgotten for millennia, to their reawakening and violent takeover of Earth. We've dissected their terrifying biology. From armor-plated limbs and deadly spikes to their hive-like behavior and reproductive hierarchy ruled by a single, fearsome queen. But beyond the claws and chaos lies something deeper: strategy. White spikes don't just kill. They evolve. They coordinate. They remember. And most terrifyingly, they were never meant to conquer, only to prepare. A chilling revelation: Earth is just one of many worlds marked for erasure. The white spikes are tools, not masters. Something greater, unseen, may still be watching, or waiting. And yet, amid this darkness, there's hope. We've uncovered their weaknesses, their aversion to cold, their reproductive vulnerabilities, their reliance on command structures. We've created toxins, traps, and tactics. We've stared extinction in the face, and kept fighting. Because when monsters come, they expect fear. But what they don't expect is resistance. So turn off the lights, close your eyes, and remember this the next time something howls outside your window. The monsters may be real, but so are we.